Hello and welcome back to another After Effects tutorial. Today I will be going over expressions. If you don't know what expressions are, an expression is basically a piece of code that tells After Effects what to do. There are many different types of expressions in After Effects, and they are really useful for many things, but today I will be going over how you can use expressions to make your animations much smoother. And in other tutorials, I will be talking about other expressions you can use that will make your editing much more easier. Okay, so this is an example I have here. Let's say I want to animate this text to do this. So it scales up and rotates, but it's so boring and plain and really unsmooth right now. Well, if I add expression here, it looks way better. It looks much more smoother and it's just more appealing. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to leave a link in the description to all of the expressions that we will be using. There's inertia bounce and bounce back. These are all really useful expressions to make your bounce effects much smoother. And you could also use them for other things. Today we'll be focusing on the inertia bounce. You could also use bounce back, but I prefer inertia bounce. And they were created by Dan Eberts, and once again, they're in the description below. Here I have my After Effects composition, so we need to start making a text layer. So we could do this by clicking in our timeline, which is right here. We're going to right click, select new and text. But you could also do this by selecting the text tool, which is right here, or pressing Ctrl T on your keyboard. So you're going to write the text you want. I'm just going to write expressions. And also, if you notice here, this point right here, which is the anchor point, we want to center that. Why? Well, because if you scale up or down, After Effects will scale it up or down based off of where the anchor point is located. And as you can see, this does not look good. So we're going to go here to layer, transform, and center anchor point in layer content. Or you could just press Ctrl Alt Home. And then we're going to our align panel, which is right here. If you don't have it, just go to Window and make sure align is checked off. So now we're going to center it. And obviously there's also some plugins that you can, or presets you could use to automatically center your anchor point, but I think some of them cost money, so it's just easier to do that. Anyways, so now we're going to make our scale and rotation keyframes. If you don't know what a keyframe is, and check my last tutorial, that is where I gave a tutorial and explained what a keyframe is and how to use them. And so right now we're going to see how to make them much more smoother. So since we want to make the text pop up and rotate like I showed in my example in the beginning, we're going to set a scale and rotation keyframe. So we're going to start off in the beginning. We're going to set the stopwatch right here, which you set a value to it so that once you get to that certain time, the value goes into the object that you want. So we're going to go up like maybe 5 frames, and to do this you can go into your preview panel. Once again, if you don't have that, just go into window and search for preview and make sure it's checked off. And this button right here is the next frame button, so I'll click on it 5 times and then set another keyframe. And now we're going to go back into the beginning and put 0. So now we have this. And we're going to do the same thing with our rotation. So we're going to press R on our keyboard while our object or text is selected so that the rotation properties come up. So now we're going to press the stopwatch, and now we're going to press the stopwatch, which that's a keyframe for the rotation. So now since we have a keyframe for the position and the rotation, we're going to press U. So basically what U does, by pressing U, it's basically a shortcut that shows you all the keyframes you've already placed. So now it's easier for us to place the keyframes. Now if you hold shift and move the current time indicator to the keyframe that you want, it'll automatically snap in place. And so now we're going to change and so now that we're here, we are going to set another keyframe. We're going to go back to the beginning and make sure that the first keyframe has a value of 90 for rotation. So now as we can see, we have this, but obviously we need to make this much smoother because it's really boring, plain, and really not smooth. So to be able to make an expression in After Effects, we're gonna have to press Alt and click on the stopwatch, and then this pops up. We're going to select it, delete it, and then copy the expression that I have linked in the description below and paste it here. And we want to do that for the rotation and the scale. So again, for the rotation, Alt and then press on the stopwatch, and then this will pop up, and just paste it there. And so now we have this, and it's really smooth. And so now something else you guys can do, we're going to open up our keyframes once again by pressing U and having our layer selected. We're going to go in a few frames forward, and we're going to set keyframes for these, the same value, so 100 and 0. And so we're going to go forward a few frames, and we are going to put 0 and 90. Why? Well, because this is how the text will exit, as you guys can see. So we're going to set this the same amount of frames. So since we have a distance of 5 frames from the beginning to the end of the first frames, we're going to do the same just so it's more even. So 1 2 3 4 5, and then we could just move these over. So now we have that. So let me just move these a little closer so that the animation, so now let me just move these a little closer just so the animation lasts a little bit shorter amount of time. Alright, so now we're going to go to the last keyframes, and we're gonna press Control Shift D. Basically what that does is it makes a cut or a split right where the indicator is at. So now I'm going to press U on the keyboard, and we are going to move all of these keyframes over like so. And now now once we move those, if we move this so that the keyframes on the text above is kind of centered with the keyframes below, as you see here, we'll get a cool transition between the text. And so let's just change the text here just so you guys can see the difference. And obviously that won't be centered. We're gonna have to change the anchor point position by going to Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point, and you could change the position since we have no position keyframes. So here's how you can make your text animations much smoother with expressions, and you can do the same thing with shape layers as well. So I'm going to make a split here and delete this, and I'm going to show you guys that you can do the same thing with a shape layer. So I'm going to add an ellipse by going over here and long pressing and clicking the ellipse tool. By holding shift and pressing my mouse and going like this, I'm making a circle. So I'm going to make it, I'm actually going to make it black just so it's a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to make it have no stroke. And so we're going to do the same thing by going to Layer, Transform, and center the anchor point. And then we're going to align it so that it's in the middle of our composition viewer. So we're gonna do the same thing just to show you guys how it works with shapes and not just text. So we're gonna press Scale, go 5 keyframes, press another keyframe, go to the beginning and press 0. And now if you guys don't like how it looks or if it's too fast, you guys can move the end keyframe and either closer or further away from the beginning. So like if you move it further away, it goes up slower, but if you move it closer, it goes up faster. But I think either 5 or 10 keyframes, either 5 or 10 frames is the best. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's not too fast or too slow, but it depends on what you're trying to do in your preference. So that looks good, but it's not smooth enough. So we're gonna press Alt and then the stopwatch, and then we're gonna paste our expression there, and then as you can see, that looks way better. And obviously we don't need the rotation keyframes here because it's a circle. And then we could do the same thing so that it could exit out. So we're going to put a keyframe here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames away, we're gonna add another one. We're going to make the value of this one 0 so that the shape could leave. So it pops in, then bounces back out. And of course, if you guys want your animation to be longer, just drag these 2 keyframes further away from the beginning too, and now it stays there and longer and then leaves. And there's many ways to make your animation smoother, but with expressions it's easier, and sometimes you get it's easier to get the desired effect that you want. In next tutorials, I'll be going over the graph editor and how you can use it to make your animation smoother as well. Oh, also I forgot to mention, you guys can't use expressions if you make your keyframes easy eased. So like a lot of you know, if you go into keyframe assistant and then press easy ease, it like makes it smoother. But don't do that when you are animating with expressions because it won't work. So let's say I highlight them and then easy ease it, it won't work. It like takes them off. Now it works. So just don't use easy ease, otherwise it won't work. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. The expressions are in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.